Although companies use this form for team building, it was specifically developed for creating high-performance innovation teams. Again, this personality poker game. Okay, maybe explain how that all works with, you're creating a game, but yet it's to challenge people on how to innovate. How did that all happen?
So, we talked a little bit earlier about how the question is so important.
Yes.
So the first step of the innovation process is asking better questions. It's defining the challenge.
Yes.
And there are some people who are very skilled at defining challenges. There are people who are good at data, numbers, demographics, statistics, whatever it might be. They have the information to make sure we're solving the right problems the right way. So that is one step of the innovation process, which links to one of the suits in the deck of cards. When we have another step, which is about defining and finding solutions. It's about generating solutions, developing breakthrough solutions. This is a separate group of people who think differently because they're all about connectiveness. How do I, connect to different solutions? How do we become more creative? There's other people who are really good at the implementation. They're good at planning the work and working the plan. And then there's others who are really good about engaging the hearts and minds of people of the innovation process. And the problem is, one of two things typically happens in organizations. The first one is you aren't playing with a full deck.
Wait, that has multiple connotations, In
this case, it means your team has too many people of one or two suits, but you're missing suits. And so once you start understanding what's missing, you get to see what your blind spots are, and that's going to impact the way that you innovate. The second issue is, even if you do have all the different styles together, coming back to process. Process is important. How people communicate and collaborate is critical. If you take a group of diverse people and put them together and say, solve a problem, they will always be less effective, less efficient than a team of people who think the same way. But if you want the breakthrough solutions, you need a group of people who think differently, and they have to have an appreciation for how each person contributes and have a process for being able to then figure out how do we bring our best skills to the table.
Now, at the conference, you talked about how a team of doctors and a team of, specialists at pipes and, what was that about? Maybe you could describe that.
So there's a group called Pumps and Pipes.
Okay.
It's out of Houston, Texas. And it's a group of cardiologists from one of the universities there who get together with people from the gas pipeline industry. So people who, move gas and oil and things like that through pipelines. And what they share, what they know about the transmission of fluid through a tube. So they're not randomly put together. They're purposefully put together. And it's a really fascinating way. Now, that's diversity of discipline. So that's diversity of experience. And with personality poker, we're looking at a different form of diversity, which is the diversity of thought, diversity of personality. And we need both. Because if we just go for one over the other, then you still don't have innovation. So we need all of that.
Now, getting back to personality poker, inside the game, again, once people have their five cards with the best words and gifted cards, how do you interpret the result?
Yeah, so let's first talk about how the cards are constructed.
Sure.
So imagine a deck of poker cards that have suits, colors, and numbers like a regular deck of cards.
Okay.
In addition, there are words that describe particular behavioral attributes like being analytical, creative, organized, empathetic. And so what we do is we shuffle the cards, we deal out 5 cards to everybody, and then people trade cards. And the goal is to get 5 cards where the words best describe how you see yourself. We can do a second round of trading where you can also gift cards. So you get to not only see how do you see yourself, but how do others perceive you? And that's really fascinating. So once you have 5 cards in your hand that you selected that describe, based on the words, how you see yourself, we go through the process of interpreting. And everybody will have a primary suit. That is the suit that is most like them. And that describes what step of the innovation process that they contribute to. It talks about what their personality is. But the interesting part is actually something a little different. If you have 5 cards in your hand, based on all of our studies, 95% of the people will be missing a suit from their hand. So they might have spades, diamonds, and hearts, but no clubs.
Okay.
That's my hand. What that tells you, and the important thing is that if I don't have clubs in my hand, when I start a business, when I start a team, the first person I want to bring onto my team is going to be a club. Whatever suits I don't have in my hand represent what I need from someone else. Now, the suits, the colors, and the numbers all have meaning.
Okay.
We've only talked about the suits, but that's the general idea. And so it's really important for people to understand not who they are, but who they are not. Because when you understand who you aren't, then you get to understand the opportunity for partnering.
So actually, so the goal is to determine your personality. Is that, or to clarify who you are and what your strength is?
It is. It's to identify your personality.
Okay.
And again, more importantly, to identify your blind spot. So like one of the things which I always say is, keep in mind that because opposites don't attract, we want to surround ourselves with people who are similar to us. So people who are different than us, we can find be a little annoying. I'll give you, like for me, I fall into the sort of that creative category. I love new ideas. I love novelty, not necessarily as great at implementation. And so people who are, program managers who are like very OCD or whatever it might be with plans, and I find them very restrictive. The people who are like that, I find annoying. So the point is that the person you like the least is often the person you need the most. Because the person who annoys you is probably the person who's in your blind spot, and you don't know that you need them. And that's really one of the things which you're able to discover through this process, is to really understand what your blind spots are.
It's such great advice because you speak all around the world about innovation, specifically for primarily for audiences that are of business nature. But you're actually touching at the core of how we're wired as humans. It's really a fantastic point that you raise. Even if a husband and wife are going at it, it's very possible that there's some great benefit that's being exposed, and that's what's frustrating you. But you really, just hit the reset button. There's some value there that you're just not at. You're putting the emotion in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about like any human relationship, romantic, business, it doesn't matter. The areas where we typically have the biggest complaints about somebody is where they aren't like us. Now, if you can step back and say, I need to have a deep appreciation, doesn't mean I want to become that.
Right.
But if I can have an appreciation for what that other person brings to the table and why I really need them on my team, in my life, whatever it is, then you've got a great starting point. But it is about appreciating the differences rather than fighting the differences.
You talked about the colors before when we talked about the deck, but how does this relate to the left-brained people in the audience, the right-brained people in the audience? Perhaps we could even take a step back. Explain what that means when people talk about, they're a left-brained guy or a right-brained guy.
Yeah. So, interestingly, we use the expression left brain and right brain, but that's really truly a myth. I mean, it's not like, no matter whether you're right brain or left brain, according to people, you have a perfectly whole functioning brain.
Right.
So that's
right.
But what it really to me is shorthand for the way we look at things. So if you're left-brained, you tend to be a little more analytical, a little more, process-oriented potentially. And in personality poker, those are the black cards.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the red cards are more relational in nature. So the first one's more about results. The second one, the right-brained, is more about relations. It's about connections. It's about connections to ideas, connections to experiences, connections to people. So it's about connecting the dots, which is sort of a different way of looking at the world. And what we need to understand is that we have different people with different thinking styles, right brain, left brain, black or red, or whatever you want to call it. And when we can uncover that in itself, it gives us some new insights into how to create teams.
So someone who's a right-brained type of individual, a left-brained, you are playing with a full deck.
Yes.
So that, coming back to your opener in the conversation this evening. So either way, you're playing with a full deck. However, you have certain strengths. Again, you're more analytical if you're from the left-brained strength personality, whereas right-brained is, I guess, more emotional, creative, etc. So my question is, can innovation come from both groups?
Oh, boy, I got to tell you.
Did I put you on the spot?
That is a great question.
Okay.
In fact, that gets at, to me, one of the biggest issues that I see in companies.
Wow.
Is that we collapse creativity and innovation. We think they're the same thing. Now, creativity comes from typically the diamonds, those creative people. But if you think about innovation is an end-to-end process that starts with an issue, problem, challenge, or opportunity and ends with the creation of value. So if you think about what we talked about, if that's the case, if it starts with an issue, problem, challenge, or opportunity, and those are the analytical people because they have all the data, we need the spades to be part of the process. And then when it talks about and produces results, an end-to-end process that starts and ends with the creation of value, well, it's the clubs who are creating value. So we almost always think that the red cards are the key to innovation, but I actually think it's getting the black cards, those analytical and goal-oriented people, in the right roles, in the right way, and maximizing the value that they can produce so that then the red cards can be creative inside of a better box.
I love the honor of interviewing C-level executives and sharing their great advice and perspective on Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe. You'll never miss an edition of Mind Your Business.